Jet Airways, once India's largest air carrier, was grounded in 2019. Plans to relaunch Jet in its 2.0 avatar have now faced several hurdles. The latest is a face-off between the lenders of the carrier and the new owners. The lenders say that the new owners, that's the Jalan Kalarok Consortium, have failed to fulfill conditions on the resolution. What does this mean for Jet Airways going forward? Will it actually take off? Importantly, what impact will it have on the aviation sector, which is going through its own state of flux? There's so much news coming in on the aviation sector today. To speak on all of this, I'm joined today by Mcon of Mcon Consulting. Mark, great to have you on the show. Let's begin with what's happening with Jet Airways. Now, this consortium, the Jalan Kalarok Consortium, has been trying to revive Jet since 2020. They were supposed to start operations this summer, then, late this year. But it seems like they're very, very far from that dream, isn't it? Is it looking increasingly difficult?
Hi, Tamanna. Good evening, and thanks for having me today. I think the bigger concern with Jet stems from the fact of what the intention is with Jet 2.0. From what we know, the Jalan Kalarok Consortium, along with the new CEO, were supposed to look at setting up the airline, restarting it. And this has got nothing to do with NCLT. NCLAT is a totally different entity. That's with the COC and the bankers. And the bankers will, and eventually they will sell all the assets to recover their dues. Now, with Jalan and Kalarok and their CEO, Sanjeev Kapoor, it's been 2 years now. And with all that we've seen, first of all, there's no capital infusion by the Kalarok Jalan Consortium. The entities and the stakeholders are also in a bit of a financial mess, with the Guptas being summoned back to South Africa on arrest warrants, and with the investors in Switzerland being raided and Luxembourg being raided. That, and then if we fast forward to where we are, what we've seen in India is a flurry of announcements and great ideas and signals of restarting, and nothing is actually taken off. Now time has not only run out, but they're at the end of the rope, and unless they start that airline immediately, the story with Jet Airways at the moment looks more like an elaborate pump and dump scheme, because the stock price from where it was at 12 to 15 rupees went up to 95 rupees. My bigger worry is, where is the direction? At what stage do we call Jet Airways happening or not happening? And some questions
Mark,
certainly need to be asked.
Why are you saying it's a pump and dump scheme? Do you think that these are not serious bidders, or they don't really want to start the airline? Is that what you're alluding to?
Absolutely. If you look at historically, it takes between, it took what, Akasa 1 year flat to start operations and get airborne and start its operating model. What stops a Jet Airways? I mean, just because the entity has acquired it, which is a good thing, the entity has to be funded. And when the Jalan Kalarok Consortium can't be waiting for the banks to finance it, because the COC with Yes Bank, PNB, SBI, and a whole lot of other banks are going to be talking about recovering their dues. They're not connected to the restart of the airline. And the airline has to be financed and funded by the promoters. And we've not really seen that. All that we've seen is speculative announcements, the livery, the cabin crew, the training, and that's not been matched up by actions on ground. Even recently, it was ET Now who broke the report of the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security cancelling Jet Airways' security approvals. So all those, if you really look at what's transpired, it just looks as if the management of Jet Airways currently today is just buying time. And that's something which is very misleading. It's misleading even for investors who hold stock of Jet Airways. And I think this is a perfectly right time for questions to be asked.
What is the way ahead for Jet as you see it? Are we going to restart the process? Is Jet not really going to make it to the skies again? How do you see this all panning out?
Jet can make it to the skies and restart Tamanna, but somebody needs to foot that tab. Somebody needs to invest at least 1,000 to 2,000 crores into Jet right now to ensure its future aspirations are met with. So far, we've not seen that. So far, nothing has transpired, and everything seems to be centered on the NCLAT proceedings and hearings, which is not in the right direction. Jet should have started, and it could have started about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. But a lot of what we've seen from the promoters does not indicate a return to skies for Jet Airways, and that for me is a big concern at this stage.
The other big story, of course, today, and it's been a buzzing day for aviation, is Air India and Vistara's merger finally happening. Tatas will be consolidating Air India and Vistara. Air India will be leading the domestic and international carrier. Vistara will be merged with Air India post receipt of requisite approvals. Remember, Vistara was a 51-49 JV between Tata Sons and Singapore Airlines. Meanwhile, Singapore Airlines will be investing 2,059 crore rupees in Air India, and after the merger, SIA will hold 25.1% shareholding in Air India. The merger deal will be completed by March 2024, and the merged entity will have a combined fleet of 218 aircraft. So back to Mark. So Mark, this was on expected lines. This was announced. This is just following the timeline. So do you see any implications? Nothing to say here except Air India emerging as a larger, stronger entity?
Tamanna, I think on the flip side of what we're seeing so far is the ridiculously low price at which they bought Air India. The 25% at $250 million, if you look at the total value of what Tata's acquired Air India, which is I think 14,000 and 18,000 crores, the math and the logic is incomprehensible. I mean, you're looking at a 25% at about $250 million. Something just does not seem right. And, I hate to be bringing up sort of a deja vu situation here, but let's not go. Let's just go back just about, 12 or 10 years ago when Etihad acquired Jet Airways. It was the same thing, at 25% at $250 million. Is it deja vu? Are we seeing this happen again? Because my bigger concern is the Air India, which was destined to be a global mega airline with a focus again of rebuilding India with the world, now gets a 25% stake from Singapore Airlines. Now, what is the role of Singapore Airlines? Are they going to have controlling rights? Are they going to have management rights? Are they just a strategic investor? Do they take a back seat and give the driving seat to Air India? What on earth is going to be the structure of the deal as we see it panning out?
No, Mark, just to that, doesn't it seem likely, considering the kind of brand value that Air India has and the fact that the Tatas have taken it over, that it's unlikely that Singapore Airlines will have the driver's seat at all in this entity?
Well, I hope so. I hope not, and I hope so. I mean, I just hope it's a win-win relationship and better maturity prevails at the end of the day. But let's be honest, Vistara from the start has been an utter disaster as an airline. First up, they've had an identity crisis. They've had a product crisis. They've had a series of, CEOs who have left. Either the airline was not manageable or was not operable. We've seen several CEOs depart over the last 5 or 7 years when they started. So, and this is not true. The same has also been with AirAsia, which also was merged with as part of operations. So the bigger question is this Vistara getting merged with Air India and then Singapore Airlines acquiring 25%. I mean, it might look great and on ground, it's good to see FDI come into India and aviation. But if you really look at the details, this looks as if it's a cover-up for an utter disaster. And I'm sure and I'm absolutely certain that the Ministry of Company Affairs, Competition Commission of India, Ministry of Civil Aviation and the government corridor of knowledge and balance are going to step in and ask some serious questions as to what's the logic of $250 million as opposed to an acquisition of $2 billion from the government of India. And we also have to be very, very mindful that the sheer size of the geographies of Singapore and Singapore International Airlines, as well as Air India and India. So Singapore is a one-city country and a single hub, whereas India is a mega nation of 1.4 billion people and at least 5 established aviation hubs, domestic as well as international, within the country. So the dynamics are totally different. And I just feel, and it's imperative that these questions are asked now, because from a longer perspective, we really don't want to see what happened to Jet Airways with Etihad. And I do believe, and I truly hope that the Air India we see going forward is a sustainable, an Indian-driven Air India with Indian hospitality.
That's the plan. That's the claim. That's why perhaps you have someone like the Tatas coming on board to give, that kind of stability to it. But, since we're talking on the aviation sector, I think it would be remiss if I don't talk about Go and what's happening with Go First right now. They've got a fresh infusion of money under the emergency, credit guarantee scheme. So a new lease of life. But it's also symptomatic of what's happening in the aviation industry. So talk to me a bit about Go and a bit about, we're in this situation where flights and daily passenger levels are at great numbers. You have great numbers, great revival. But is it going to be enough to save the weaker links in the industry right now?
Oh, certainly. ECGLS, initially 200 and then 1,000 crores was already given to SpiceJet. And for Gore to get the 1,000 crores and get a helping hand from the government is obviously in the right direction. Let's not forget, Go is an alive airline that's been there in existence since 2006. The key to running any airline in any part of the world is to keep yourself above water and keep yourself alive. Now, ups and downs and dips keep happening. If you were to compare Go with anybody else, even SpiceJet, Spice has been in our bankruptcy nearly 5 times and nearly 4 strategic investors. I mean, we've seen the Tatas to Murrans to Wilbur Ross to a whole lot of independent investors come in to try and save it. Even Mr. Ajay Singh has put his personal money into the venture now. So if I were to really compare a Go, I think I'd probably say Go is just going through a rough patch. I mean, yes, it is hard. It's been hard to try and get your operations back up to speed post the COVID after you've locked down your airline and now you've suddenly got to grow at 30 to 40% and cater to that demand. So I think this is clearly rough times, but I do believe from a longer term perspective, it looks good for India. Go is going to come back, but gradually they'll come back to stability. We're now seeing signs of SpiceJet get their act together and put the house in order. Air India, now the future of Air India looks a bit gray and hazy, but I hope that gets resolved. We've got Vistara, we've got Indigo, who's got issues with fleet reliability, and I hope those come back. So, in general, you got this ridiculous, insane growth that we're seeing and the demand surge post pandemic. But I think now what's really relevant is how on earth are all these airlines going to come together and help really take that growth to the next level. So time is critical. The current phase is critical. And like I said, I just hope better sense and maturity prevails with everybody.
Hopefully clear skies ahead. I'll have to wrap it there. Thank you so much, Mark. Always a pleasure to speak with you on the show.
Pleasure, Tamanna. Thanks for having me.